Okay, thank you everyone for joining us. Sorry some of us aren't there live today. Had some conflicts come up, and we've got myself and Todd are online right now. We can see Dick's in the chamber and live, and I think someone else is planning on joining us. So if you'll let us know when they get here. So we'll open up this June 3rd Power Board meeting. Thanks for everyone for being here. We've got a few in the audience, and did everyone get the agenda emailed to them and have a chance to look through that? And are there any questions?
Nope.
Yep and nope.
Okay. Well, if I can get a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the agenda for June 3rd.
I'll second it.
Okay, Dick did the first, Todd did the second. Todd, would you start us on a vote?
Spriggs, aye.
Dick?
Saunders, aye.
And Dinsmore, aye. Okay, thank you. Item number 2 is the approval of the minutes. Again, did everyone get a chance to look those over? And are there any questions, comments, concerns?
No, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve those.
I'll second.
Okay, Todd did the first, Dick did the second. Dick, would you start us on a vote?
Saunders, aye.
Todd?
Spriggs, aye.
Dinsmore, aye. Okay, item number 3 is our new business. Recommendation to the City Council to approve a resolution. And I'll turn the time over to Rick, and he can explain the resolution a little better than I can.
You're not going to read that whole thing?
I can barely see it on my phone here, so rather than missing a word or two.
Okay, let me share my screen. Attempt to share my screen. Since you've had a couple easier months, I thought I'd give you some light reading. And actually, I didn't send you the 103-page document associated with this item. So this, believe it or not, is the Cliff Notes version. So basically, this resolution is to authorize bonding through UAMPS to do some improvements on the Central St. George project. And just a quick refresher, the Central St. George project consists of substation transmission lines from Central. There's a double circuit line from there down to the St. George sub, part of the St. George sub. Actually, we're joint use with the large line with PacifiCorp. There's a line from St. George sub to River, the River substation, Skyline substation and lines, and then there's some smaller 69 lines. So what happens, there's a document that is called Exhibit C, and I'll try to bring this basic red line up. And basically what Exhibit C does is it says, more or less, this is the project, and here's a real small description of the pieces of those projects. So this is the Central St. substation, the line I talked about. And so it's just basically a big list. And as time goes on, we've added or taken away different components from this project. The project actually started back in 1989. So it's a bit...
It's got some whiskers.
Yes, it does. And so when we add a project or take away from Exhibit C that has to go back through all the governing bodies, which is Washington, Hurricane, St. George, and Santa Clara primarily. And so there was a study done, and I think I've referenced it in previous meetings. I'm trying to find the best one to start from. That's not it. I guess it was this one. And again, there's a larger study if anybody was interested, that's 100 and some pages long, that basically went through and evaluated the transformation capacity at the River, Skyline, and Green Valley subs. And it identified that we need to increase that transformation to be able to cover summer loads if we lose a transformer. And so this project or this resolution is all tied into adding transformer upgrades and capacity upgrades. And so take just a brief minute and kind of show, hopefully, are you able to see things online there, Mike, or?
I'm actually going through it as you're going. But yeah, I understood it. If I understood it, it was 3 transformers and they're moving them around and.
Yes, and so kind of
Yeah.
in a brief summary, I'm just trying to see if I have, okay, this probably, there's 3 substations that are involved. One is the Green Valley sub, which is actually not a UAMP substation. It's owned between St. George, I think they have like 97% of it, and then Santa Clara. But there's space there for another transformer. It benefits the whole system, and so that's why it's included in here. And so it would be buying a new transformer, placing it in Green Valley sub, buying 2 new transformers for River sub, which is the one at the base of Four Master on Riverside Drive. And then we would move the 2 existing transformers at the River sub up to the Skyline substation, which is up by the St. George Energy Services offices up there on the top of the hill. So
Well, that was one of my questions, was identifying those substations, because the names didn't mean anything to me. So you just answered one of my questions.
yeah, Green Valley is, I don't honestly remember what the new name of the development down off the hill. If you go up to the Green Valley Resort in St. George, it's down off the hill. At one time it was called the Lakes. It's been several, but it's down there out by where people rock climb and stuff like that. And then those are the other 2. So what they did is to do all that work is approximately like $26 million. And so we asked ICPE to say, okay, break that into smaller chunks. Transformers of that type are running from 2.5 to 3 years out. And so basically this is a 5-year project to accomplish all this. The initial bonding will be for about 15 million of the 25, and then we'll do a second bonding as we get later into it. And this is just some of the layouts of the existing Skyline and the different things that we're gonna do. And Skyline's space constrained, so there were, I don't know how many options in the other report I talked about. I think there was 6 or 7 different methods to do that. Green Valley's really straightforward. They have a space, and it's always been designed for a second transformer in the future. So that one's fairly straightforward. And see if I can find the River. Again, there's all these different Green Valley. Did I go by River?
See it.
That one's still Skyline.
I saw it a second ago.
Did I blow right by it? Again, these were all the different options. Skyline was a bit of a challenge.
There it is, River.
That's Green Valley. Oh, maybe they didn't include a drawing because basically all we're doing is removing 2 transformers and putting 2 bigger ones in, and that's in the same location. So Green Valley and River are pretty straightforward. Skyline takes a bit more work to try to fit it all in there. And let me get to, and so basically this document lays out in a little more detail what's going to happen in each of those 5 years. Because we've got to schedule this as well. It has to be done during the off season because you're going to be taking substations out of service while you do this work. And so we have to manage or coordinate with the load versus the capacity we have available while the construction's going on. There's River finally. Basically, there's 2 existing transformers and we replaced those. And I think since they're bigger, we'll need to do new transformer pads in those with containment as well. So that's the basic gist of the project, is to increase the capacity that we have. And this is year 4. I thought there was a summary with all 5. I apologize for, maybe it's this other document. Yeah, and so this is, in summary, add a second transformer, 75 base rated, 140 top end. River will remove the 240 and 75s, and then we'll move those up to Skyline. And then we're going to replace those 2 at River with larger ones, which I think are the 75 140s as well. We haven't done any of this type of work for, I was at St. George, so it would have been approaching 20 years since we've added any transformers to the system or transformer capacity. So we got a pretty good run out of that equipment.
It's amazing with all the growth.
Yeah.
That you have 20 years without having to do this.
And again, that's, you try to project it out for at least a 15 or 20 year period. And that's the goal of this, is to get us another segment. Of course, as it is like when you buy your car, about the time you get it paid off is when you need to do work on it or something like that. So
this is for all of Washington County?
This is primarily for the UAMPS members of Washington County.
UAMPS.
Santa Clara, St. George, Washington, and Hurricane would be the main participants.
And Rick,
Uh-huh.
St. George already approved this project, correct?
They may have. I'm not sure what their schedule is compared to ours.
Okay, maybe they were just talking about it being in their budget or something too. I thought I saw that 2 weeks ago.
And it could have. It could have been. And then I'll be out of town next week when we have our first city council. So it'll go on our city council on June 25th is when it would go to council. And so this is basically the total 26 million spread out over a 5-year period.
Which
And-
is split between all of us?
Correct. We're roughly 15% of that total. That's what it works out. St. George, I think, is about 65. Make sure my math works out. Hurricane's about the same as us. They're roughly 15. Santa Clara is, I think, around 10-ish. So St. George maybe 60. So it's done based on basically load ratio. And so this is again, just kind of the initial front end is to get the design done, particularly get the transformers on order, since they're such a long lead time item. So we really can't do some of these projects, obviously, until they get here. First one, because it's the easiest, is to get Green Valley, the transformer in there, and do some breaker change outs that need to happen at Skyline, because they're really old, they're even older than that have limited interrupting capabilities. So that's the basic plan over the next 5 years. And so UAMPS put this presentation together on the finances and what the project's done, and it's set up a little different. Periodically, they set a bonding cap. And right now, I think it's at 64 million, and that's not at any one time, that's cumulative over the life of the project. And so this resolution basically will bump that up to 100. So the difference is really what we're looking at here. There are a couple other components. There's a strong possibility, we don't know the exact timing, of having to reconductor the St. George to River transmission line, which runs kind of by the mall at the base of the Four Master Hill and goes up through the North St. George Industrial Park. And there'll be some cost when PacifiCorp puts in the transformer that we've talked about at the St. George sub. There's a small line reroute over in the Santa Clara area, and then this river line reconductor. Those are the main project components. We looked at the outstanding bonds, and that the current bonds that are in the project will be paid off just a little over 2 years from now. And so this is where they came up with basically the 26 for the transformation, 200,000 for the Santa Clara line and the river reconductor that gets to the 30. And then they have a little contingency. So that gets us to the authorizations for 100 million, but don't let that, it's kind of deceiving because that's cumulative from the start of the project, going back to 1989. So we do have the option that we could bring, instead of bonding, we can bring our own money to the table and basically just pay it. Talk to Jeremy. We don't have that kind of funds available, so the bonding makes the most sense for Washington. Not 100% sure what the other members will do. I suspect most will do the bonding. I think this is the one that has, yeah, so this is kind of the current debt service, is the blue line, and that gets paid off in 27. And then we have instructed UAMPS at this point is basically we'd do interest-only payments for those 3 years. And then when those bonds pay off, we'll start paying on the principal. The intent of that is, instead of stacking this on top, it's kind of does a little more levelized of what expenditure. And I did mention that there's going to be a second series to get us from the 15 to the 26. That'll come somewhere probably about the time they get paid off. So there'll be another bond that gets stacked on top of what this shows, but it will still be less than the current payments, is what the plan is. So, oh, it's right here. So yeah, Washington, Hurricane are about 15, St. George 65, and Santa Clara about 6% of the project, so. So the resolution updates Exhibit C, authorizes the change to the 100 million from the 64, and that's what it goes to. So that's a lot to just say we're going to add transformers at 3 substations, but this is the method of the project to do that. And so as those different components come through, this will authorize that full amount, so we don't have to go back through this every time. So any questions on that? Like I say, it's,
So as I understand it, then after 27, starting year 28, our payment less
correct,
because of what we're.
of how they
existing
structured the
paying for is
debt.
higher.
Correct. It'll be, when we get that second series in there, it'll be less, not dramatically less, but it'll keep it basically flat is what the goal is, so. Instead of having big spikes up and down year to year, so. Any questions from online? Did Mark join? I haven't seen him. Okay. So basically, it would be for the Power Board to recommend to the City Council, and you probably, whoever makes the motion needs to read that fund long. Because that's the title that's actually on the resolution. That's this title here is where that comes from. And so it'll we'll have our UAMPS board meetings, not next week, the week after. The resolution in that will basically say we'll approve it as the PMC, contingent on this resolution being approved by the 4 different city councils, basically, so hopefully that made sense. I don't think since I've been here, we've done one modification to Exhibit C, and that was easier because we just deleted an item that Hurricane actually took over. But other than that, I don't think it's ever come before the Power Board since I've been here, so. So any questions?
Thanks, Rick. Are there any questions from anybody?
Not from me.
No, I don't think so. I'll go ahead and make a motion to the city council to approve the recommendation, a resolution approving amendments to the transmission service agreement for the Central St. George Transmission Project to authorize certain upgrades to the project, issuance of bond by UAMPS to finance such upgrades and related amendments and related matters.
You got all of it in there. Thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay, Todd did the first, Dick did the second. Dick, would you start us on a vote?
Saunders, aye.
Todd?
Spriggs, aye.
And Dinsmore, aye. We didn't have anybody else join us as far as on the board?
It doesn't look like it yet.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Rick. And that's going to the city council on the 25th, you said?
Correct.
Okay. I'll make a note, and you can send us a reminder. I'll try to be there at that meeting if they have any questions, for me at least, and I can refer to you.
No, that's fair. And basically,
okay.
The information I'll send to the council will be the same, other than I'll add into the briefing document that this body recommended it to them for approval. So.
Okay. Okay. Next item is item number 4, regular business, operations report and generation update.
Okay. Just a few things. Our impact fee, our updated impact fees went into effect on, I guess technically Sunday. First implemented would have been yesterday on the 2nd. So the fiscal year 26 budget will go to council. I believe it's next week on the 11th. They had a workshop on it the last meeting of last month. They didn't have any questions, at least on the power side of things, so I don't anticipate any issues there. With the main projects for next year going to be the Grapevine substation, the transmission lines associated with that, and then rebuilding the well line that's on the west side of the new Salente development. So our May peak was about 42.7 megawatts, which is 6 megawatts higher than our previous May high. So, and we were about 36, 37 megawatts in 2020 and 2024. So, and probably no surprise it was Friday of last week was when that peak occurred. So,
Doesn't bode well for summer.
yeah, I don't know. Of course, today, the last couple of days have been kind of nice. So, but yeah, that was my thought too. So, but yeah, so it was nearly a 17% increase over our previous May peak. So, they started running the generators last Thursday, and then our gas that we've pre-purchased started on Sunday. And so basically from now till the end of September, I'd anticipate our units will run basically on a daily basis in the 4 to 6, maybe 8 hours, depending on resource needs. So give a quick update on the substation project. We've received 3 loads of steel. So far, the last load arrives tomorrow for the project. I'll just show you some of the pictures. This is them starting to excavate for one of the transformer pads. I know these are real exciting pictures, but it's fun to see things actually go in the ground, or at least I enjoy it. This will be, they've got all the rebar cages tied that will be used in the pier foundations. And that's just some of the forms they've got fabricated for the pier foundations. And that was one of the 2 transformer pad pits, if you will, that they over excavate, then they bring in some road base, compact it to get ready to put it on. And so this is just kind of a progression. We did receive the regulators this week, or week before last, excuse me. Good news with these guys is we were able to get them before they felt like they needed to charge us the tariff extra stuff. So these actually came in without that impact. So I was a little bit worried about that, but they're here, they're sitting out at the plant, and when appropriate, we'll move them out. So again, starting to collect pieces for the project. Again, this was, they're just starting to put that same transformer area, starting to put the conduits in. And that gives you an idea of the amount of rebar that goes in that. It's, I want to say it's either number 7 or number 8. So it's all this down here in the bottom is basically 1 inch diameter, 12 inches on center both ways. And then the transformer will set up on this pier that sets in the middle. This is a circuit breaker pad that they've got formed up. And just different perspective of how much rebar goes into these. And it's probably took, I don't know, week and a half, 2 weeks to get to this point. And then they poured the first pour this morning. And so this is pictures from about 1 o'clock today. And so you can see it's starting to take shape. This is the base. There'll be a wall that goes around this. The regulators will sit on this pier and the transformer on this bigger one. And this should be, these two piers will be poured on Thursday morning is when they've got scheduled, and then they'll do the walls after that. So very labor intensive on that. So that's, and then on the transmission line, we received the drawings back from the manufacturer, CHM. Made comments, have submitted those back to them last week, and so we're waiting on the next revision for approval, and then hopefully the next one, they'll get it close enough that we can release it for fabrication. So the crews, hopefully by the end of the month, will be able to finish the conduit that goes out to in the Red Hills Parkway area on Red Ledge Road. They've got one last section of conduit to put on that. And then once we get in the new budget year, they can pull in some new cable that will help provide a better feed to the Canyon Breeze and that little industrial park where the equipment rental place, I think it's a Kubota dealership now, where Six States used to be. Right now, that's on some really old direct buried cables. And so it'll be good to have some fresh cables being able to feed that area. So the AMI project, the main focus there has been getting the billing software Springbrook and the metering software at Clara One, get that meshed and talking to each other. I think they made some pretty good progress over the last couple of weeks. And once that, we get the reasonable confidence in that software, we'll start deploying a few meters. Again, we may approach the power board and some on the council, maybe city employees, to implement those first so we can see how the billings, like in Todd's case, you've got solar. That would give us a good solar account to make sure everything's working right with the new software and the new meters and all that. So going a little slower than we'd hoped, but we're making progress. And I think we've got the right people talking to each other now. So you may or may not have noticed up by I-15 and Main Street, crews were up there last week, and we removed one of the transmission switches that had been there for a lot of years, and then we're going to repurpose that on the transmission line to the Great Vein sub. When we did the work a couple years ago in Main Street, it made that switch kind of obsolete. It wasn't useful. One span away, there's another switch. So we're able to save quite a bit of money to repurpose. We'll have 4 switches that will have moved from other locations to better locations on that. So on the solar applications, it's interesting. Last month we had 13, and in May we had 2. So it's just interesting to me how it can be kind of lumpy like that. And then I think Scott's been, thanks to Scott, he's been working on getting the pole attachment agreements. We've had comments back from TDS, CenturyLink, and Go Fiber. He's combined all of those comments, the things that we're okay with, into one agreement, and we'll send that back to the companies, and hopefully they're okay and we can proceed with signatures on those. Oh, forgot that I had the pictures of this. Is where they removed that switch. There's the switch there. Santa Clara allowed us to use one of their large buckets, and so they were able to do it a little bit easier with 2 trucks. So you can see the switch that's up there now, or was there. And then they take it down and then basically jumper around where the switch was. And that's the finished product. So, which will actually be good because that'll remove the switch from the middle of the on-ramp and stuff there. It'll make it a little bit easier, so. Also can kind of go over where we're at on the PCA and the power costs. We've kind of leveled off, which is a little over 8 cents. I would anticipate we'll stay in that range for the foreseeable future. So the power cost of last April was what this is versus the previous year was a little bit higher. And so what that translates into is the PCA isn't quite as negative as it was. We're still about 1.5 cents negative. And I think next month it'll reduce a little bit more, and then it'll probably stabilize in there because our costs here versus what we expect will be similar, so. This one's the peak KW, monthly peak KW, and you can see the May peak is quite a bit higher than previous, but so far this year, basically every month has been higher than previous, which isn't too big of a shock if you drive around town and see all the growth and new load. But our average usage for our residential customers staying about 600 from April. I think this is, oh no, it's May. So you can see it's varied, and again, it'll change based on temperature of a given month and a given year, but there'll be a lot of people much higher than that and some lower than that, and that's just taking kilowatt hours sold divided by the number of customers. So it just gives a rough idea of what our average is there. So any questions? That's main stuff on kind of the local system. Oops, going the wrong way. Oh, we did have one outage a week ago Friday. There was an excavator that hit one of our single phase lines on 500 West. Fortunately, no one was hurt, and they were able to get it back on. I think it was about half-hour outage is all. So they had assumed the line was de-energized for some odd reason, but
If it was de-energized, it's okay to cut it.
I guess I didn't understand that either because it's connected to, yeah. I don't know. You get all kinds of interesting excuses, but
Oh, we thought it was a gas line.
yeah.
That was cable.
On the UAMP side of things, our meetings, we've went again, every other meeting will be virtual. And so the May meetings were virtual. So we only had 4 meetings and then a discussion on the all requirements project. So the UAMPS report is kind of abbreviated this month. The Central St. George, the main thing was the Exhibit C that we just talked about. And this is part of the other one was replacing some insulators on a line that feeds Santa Clara and the future reroute of that segment. And you probably remember over the last, goodness, I don't know, what's it been, 6 years, 7 years, Benzer. There's been an easement encroachment out by the Walmart and Hurricane that's gone on for a a long time. We approved a settlement agreement in that suit, and I haven't heard yet if the other side accepted that or not, but they said they were willing to, so hopefully it'll stop having to pay lawyers on that, so. On the Nebo project, it's been running well, come out of the spring outage, and it's been running well. The one thing that will be coming up on that project is UDOT's doing a big interchange update there on the north end of Payson, right next to the plant. So there's a segment of the line just north of the plant that ties it into the main grid system. It'll have to be relocated. It'll be done at UDOT's expense, kind of like when we did the interchange here. And so UAMPS is just working through that with them, the agreements for them to reimburse UAMPS for all costs. UAMPS will arrange for the design and construction of the relocation, and UDOT will pay for it. The one tricky thing there is to coordinate that work when we actually cut in the line to when the plant's already down for maintenance, so we're not losing output because of that project. And they've indicated that UDOT's willing to work because otherwise they'd have to pay for that lost power, which could be sizable depending on time of the year. The Millard County project, we met briefly, and that's just to move the study costs into the line of credit that we're using for the design. So we have a meeting tomorrow with the State Office of Energy Development on what the reporting requirements will be on the URI grant we got through the federal government, through the state. UAMPS has helped us navigate those waters. Hopefully it won't be too onerous, but we are working on developing a material list so we can get the materials for that project out to bid, because it all has to be Buy American, Build American, and so we've got to track those materials separate from what we normally do. So there was a lot of discussion on these last two items, the pool project with EDAM, the extended day ahead market. I still think there's often more questions than answers at this point, but all indications are this time next year we'll be under that requirement. So as we're able to report things a little more definitive, we're trying to figure out how it will impact our day-to-day operations and needs. So, and then our requirements, it's not a project, it's a concept or an idea that UAMPS is kicking around. We talked about a little bit last month. And I think I'd presented, there was a light, a medium, and a heavy idea depending on if the medium was the existing resources would be billed just like they are, future would be put into that common all requirements pot. The heavy would put existing and new resources in the pot, and light didn't change a lot from what we're currently doing. And so UAMPS put out a survey with asking for responses, and I guess the majority of the responders like the medium idea, which I think is kind of what we talked about a little bit. And so UAMPS is taking that and trying to put a little more governance and definition around what that might look like. And then we can have those discussions on the UAMPS board level as well as with the governing bodies. So we're waiting to see what that looks like, and possibly we could have something we could kick around a little bit next month, but I'm not 100% sure. So like I say, there was actually kind of reduced meetings in May, but those are the main UAMPS items, and so.
Looks
Any-
like we have someone here from the community. Kaylin, did you have something you wanted to bring up before the board, or? Is now a okay time for that,
Yeah,
Rick?
sure.
Yes. Okay.
A year ago, April, I found out that I had ovarian cancer. And the soonest I could get my surgery was September. And so I was over at Red Cliffs Health and Rehab for 6 months trying to recover from that. And I accidentally missed one of my payments, and so they took me off of the budget thing and said that I can't get back on it for 12 months, I think it was. Well, what had happened is my friend Cindy Hershey usually brings my mail to me, and she didn't get a chance to because her daughter just had twins a few days before Christmas, and so I wasn't able to get December's payment made. And I figured that this would be a situation that they could overlook, or not overlook, make adjustments or whatever, so that I can stay on the budget thing for my utilities.
So is this a reduced amount? Is this the budget? I'm not sure what that is. It's a,
No, it's equal payment that would try to levelize it over the year.
and so if you miss a payment on that, it kind of messes things up a little bit.
Rachel might be able to address what the policies are.
Normally on the budget bill, what they do, and you might want to double check with utilities now, but it used to be if there was 2 payments when I was in the department in a year, then they would remove you off. They might have taken that to council and changed it to 1. That's something you might want to check with them and see why if there was 2.
So basically, it doesn't change your annual amount.
It just changes. Yeah.
It goes for overall usage for the whole year, and they normally recalculate it in February of each year.
Yeah, so I can, me or Rachel can chat with Brittany and see if there's something.
And if,
But Brittany's the one that has the, I guess, the ultimate say on that. So if you could maybe give Rachel the info, or if you know.
So they just sent me, it says, once a budget bill program, the city will allow 1 lane payment in a rolling 12-month period before removing from the program. So that's probably, but let's definitely
We can reach out.
look and see.
I did talk to Jeremy Red, and
He's the old
he
one.
said,
okay.
Know what he said.
he said that he's pretty sure there's a way he can make.
So we
I
can
can't think of the word, but yes.
Can you just write your first and
And I have her information too. If you want to get back to me, I can follow up with her.
Rachel,
Yes, sir.
are you aware of any other situations that have been brought forward? This is something that we usually don't hear the numbers of who's removed from equal pays and stuff. Who's it that kind of oversees that?
That's all utilities. Utilities is the one that covers all of it. I don't see any of the billing part, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, that's fine. Just so we know, that's who we need to go and address this with.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, utilities would be the
Okay.
ones. Unfortunately, we don't get to have a say on the billing portion.
And Kaylin, did Jeremy give you a time frame of when he was going to get back with you on saying on what he was checking into?
No,
Okay. When did you talk to him?
I think it was in April or May, I can't remember.
Okay, so it hasn't been a week or so. It's been a little bit of time.
Yes,
Okay.
We'll follow up and I can follow up on
Yeah.
that too.
I think between Todd and I, we'll both follow up with Jeremy and see if we can find out if he's had a resolution or where he has gone with it so far.
thank you, Mike.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Caitlin.
I didn't even, got my back, I didn't even notice
Yeah,
she'd come
no,
in, so
yeah.
thanks.
Yes, thank you.
So that's really all I have for this month, and unless there's
Okay.
questions.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Glad to see Dick back here.
Yeah,
Yep. Yes, welcome back, Dick.
Yep, on the right side.
That's right.
Well, you want a motion for adjournment?
Yeah, unless someone's got a question.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second it.
All right, Dick did the first, Todd did the second. Todd, will you start us on a vote?
Spriggs, aye.
Dick?
Hunter's eye.
Densmore, aye. Okay, thank you everyone for joining us this month, and we will meet again. Opening up my calendar. Do we meet July 1st, or is that, am I
yeah,
looking right?
Yeah.
Okay,
meeting July,
Okay,
August is the one we don't meet.
okay. Our next meeting will be July 1st then. Okay, thank you everyone.
Thank you.